Welcome back everyone to what is now GSX International Airport as chosen by you, the audience. Obviously this episode was quite delayed, so I'll cover that in a moment, but I'd like to talk about what I'm doing right now. So this episode is actually going to be about the ramp or apron. It's basically the area where planes park, where the gates are. That's what I'm just going to be calling it the ramp for the most part. And I decided to do that instead of the lighting and all the markings because that turned out to be way harder. I underestimated that completely, so we're just going to be doing this. As you can see, all these props here, like these tow bars and this tow barless pushback vehicle, these are all made by Vasimir. All of these props here that you can see right now are made by Vasimir, and this project would have been completely impossible without him because there are pretty much no good airport assets out there in terms of props and really like detailed things. So you have some crew stairs as well as some boarding ramps, some catering vehicles, and here are all the lines. We're not going to be using all of them, just some of the yellow and black ones, as well as the solid white one for this episode. We have the stop bars as well as the ramp markings. The stop bars are basically where the planes, they park on. That's where the ground marshals, they sort of signal for them to stop, and each of these spots has a designated thing for a plane. And these like triangles and circles at the bottom that you can see here, this is where you put the number or whatever is the code for the gate. This is a Mars configuration plane stand. Basically, it's multiple stop bars. It could service 2 medium planes or 1 huge one. And the dashed ones are basically alternate stop bars. After that, we have the plane stands themselves, and this is sort of the outline of where the plane goes. They can't really go past a certain thing, so they have to stay within this sort of outline. And yeah, they're pretty much, each plane has its own, not really, but they fit certain sizes of planes. We also have the actual planes. These are made by Bisquegelhausen. They're great, and most of them are based off of real airlines, like Taira is Emirates, Transcon is United, CS Airlines is American Airlines. I think Morita is an original one, but could be wrong. Air Rifle is Air France. And then these are some other props. I don't remember by who they're by, but I have a lot of Air Canada and Delta ones because I really like them, as well as that Aeroflot you just saw there. Yeah, a lot of Air Canada. I really like Air Canada. And we also have a Qantas, because how could you go without Qantas? I can actually start putting anything down. I actually need to establish some sort of service roads because they often are right up against these like terminals or spokes or whatever. And so I wanted to do that. And basically, I'm just taking this this concrete road. I'm bordering it right next to the walls or whatever. And I'm going to be putting some lines later and detailing that. But this is sort of my process. This is how I did it. And it's not as hard, but you do need to disable snapping because they'll try to snap to the grid. While we're just looking at me putting down roads, which is kind of boring, but I wanted to include it in case anybody wanted to do the same thing, I wanted to address why this took so long. So like I said, I heavily underestimated how long this episode would take to produce and how hard it would be to do in the first place. I really thought it would be pretty straightforward, but actually the amount of repetition is actually pretty hard, and I actually ended up not detailing it, as you'll see in the end, as much as I wanted to. I barely got to do like half spoke or whatever it is. And at the same time, I unfortunately had some things I had to take care of in actual life, and I couldn't give up that for just this video I'm making here. So yeah, I'm gonna try with the new format. I'm gonna try and do shorter videos that focus on a thing. So it'll be shorter videos, but they'll come more often because I really don't want a repeat of Edbrook. If you don't know what Edbrook it is, it's this sort of failed YouTube series, I guess. It's basically how I learned how to write YouTube videos because that I did so wrong. So yeah, I'm gonna try and do that now. So for these roads, I'm using a ton of Move It because you can't get it perfect just doing it by hand. You also need some tools like Move It to help you. Otherwise, you're going to have these weird angles and it's going to clip into these buildings. After I had done the roads, it was time to put down the plane stands and planes, and I decided to do it like I coupled the stop bars with the plane stands, and then I put a plane on top of that for reference. And I remove all of them later because I want, each terminal to be a separate, not terminal, I don't know I guess it is a terminal. I'm just gonna call them terminals. And each terminal is basically its own airline. It's not always a full terminal, sometimes it's only half. And I take these plane stands and I try to get them in a way that sort of works. I couldn't really find documentation or any proper way to put down plane stands. So it's not all the same plane stand. It's really sort of just randomized. And because of that, not all the gates are symmetrical. I sort of have to jerry-rig it and work with how I put the plane stands. That, of course, probably isn't the most realistic way to do it, but when I looked at reference photos and I looked on Google Maps, I couldn't find a consistency to plane stands, so I just sort of randomized it. And I probably could have used the same color for every plane stand too, but that would have taken 5 times longer, and I didn't have the time for that in general. Also, I end up using these Mars configuration plane stands a lot because they're so diverse. You can really change them up and put different configurations and all that, so yeah, I really like that. Just to give you all a sort of time reference to work with, so in case this video gets delayed again, it's March 30th, and the Iridium Sat-5 mission just launched by SpaceX, like 40 minutes ago. I'm only saying this because there's such a high chance that it might get delayed, this episode, that I have to prove that I am working on it every chance I get, because there's some stuff that's unavoidable, some delays that I can't skip, basically. So here you can see I'm just continuing with putting down these plane stands, and I'm trying to get them as close to each other as I really can while keeping sort of a reasonable distance in between them to sort of prevent wing clipping. Around these sort of round terminal spokes, the hubs, I think it's a hub it's called, and I'm trying to put the plane stands in this sort of circular fashion around them, which I think looks really nice. It sort of breaks up the whole drabness, or whatever it's called, blandness of just having constant, like, horizontal just lines of plane stands, and I think it's more unique. And that's what I sort of just keep doing. And you can see some of these stop bars I have there are actually dashed because they are alternate stop bars, and I fixed that later, or I am fixing that at the moment still, by just going over that with the solid yellow line that Vasimir made. So after putting all of my plane stands down, this is sort of what it looks like. This is what a full capacity GSX looks like. And it's pretty tight. And obviously this is unrealistic because this doesn't happen. At least most of the time it doesn't. So I'm going to be editing that now and removing a ton of planes. But yeah, that took me a couple days to do. And now we're moving on to actually doing the actual gates. So this is the piece that I was talking about, and it came out now. And basically Vasimir's GRU terminal pack came out. And it has all these great assets, and I'm going to be doing a separate terminal expansion some other time, which will be utilizing most of that. But this is basically how I make the gates and all the jet bridges. I put down one of these pieces, and then I have a jet bridge stemming out from that to connect to the plane. And I'm trying to find the right height because there are so many different ones. I'm sure I found out later that I could just search it up because it's in the name of the jet bridge, because it's a building, it's a prefab, and yeah, I wasted a lot of time on that, but it turned out worth it in the end. But still, they're not long enough, and I had to actually add some like separate little building extensions a little bit later. Something a little bit annoying about these jet bridges, though, even though I appreciate the hell out of it. So Vasimir, he added lights to these jetways, jet bridges, whatever you like to call them. And that's great. They should have lights, obviously, and I really like that they have lights, especially they have that flashing red light on the connector to the actual plane. But City Skylines doesn't have the best light physics, and so these white lights that he has inside of these jetways, they shine through the floor and they create this really bright glow around the entire jet bridge, which is pretty annoying, but I mean, I guess some things you just have to deal with. So that's probably one of the things, although I wish there was a workaround to that. All of Vasimir's airport assets are so detailed too, and I can't imagine the amount of work that he puts into these. Like, yes, they are pretty high poly, or high tree count, or whatever, but they work, and they look amazing, and I don't really care about how high in terms of trees they are, because it works. I just don't care. My computer is strong enough for that. That being said, if you don't have a decent graphics card and decent enough RAM, you probably don't want to make a huge airport like this. You could still use these, obviously, like I'm not stopping you from doing that, but your computer's gonna have a hard time. It's gonna have a hard time doing all this. Trust me, I know from experience. I filmed Edinburgh on this crappy laptop with literally I mean, the processor was fine, but there was like 4 gigabytes of RAM, I think, and it didn't even have a graphics card. I'm still really confused about how I managed to run that, even though it was so painful. It took 40 minutes for the entire game to load, and sometimes it would take up to 2 hours for me to just get the game to work. Oh, I still think back to Edinburgh. It was such a hassle, such a hassle. Speaking of being a hassle to produce, have you seen FBS International Airport Episode 4 on Flux's channel? No, I'm not going to stop promoting it. Yes, it's a great thing. Please go check it out. They've put so much more work into it than I have. I mean, they pre-recorded this months in advance. They planned this. They got custom assets made for them, and I'm just sitting here and trying to create my videos by myself a week, trying to keep them with week spacing, but still, I don't think it's nearly as hard as it is for them. They have a way higher production quality than me, probably, I think. And you can see I finished the jetways here. Obviously, I did them wrong because I have the one on the left connecting to the right side of the Air Canada, and I fixed that here because in North America, that seems to be the only way they do it. Only like this, even though planes have 2 doors, like you can see right there. It's stupid, I guess, but it's just some sort of guidelines they have. And this is just one terminal, and this took me like 2 hours to get right because each little jet bridge has to be configured properly for each plane stand, for the proper angle, and I mean, yeah, it makes it more realistic, but it makes it also a quadrillion times harder. So I wanted to change up these spokes out on the side here because, like I said, the GRU terminal pack thing came out, and it looks so much better. It's glass, you can see inside. I love how it looks, and so I wanted to use that, and I did. So I basically replaced it with, I think this is like the Terminal 3 or something. I'm not sure, but it looks nice, and I had to use it, so I just basically replaced those with this. That meant I kind of had to move around the plane stands a bit, but that's probably the easiest part of this entire project, and I wasn't too worried about that. And I still put those little overhang, these pieces right here, I put them, but like I said, I can't get them perfectly symmetrical and be at the same distance from each other because each plane stand is a different size, planes are a different size, and I have to also account for the jetway length and stuff. Once I finished that and I added jetways and stuff, it looks great. It's already taking shape, but it might still look a little weird because I didn't add any pavement yet, which I will really soon, and it kind of messes up how it looks like because it's just this green grass. But I added the jetways. That was a really big hurdle to overcome, and after that it was already, you could see that it already looked more like a real airport. Of course, wasn't expecting it to be easy, but I didn't expect it to be this hard. But I'm still really enjoying it, and I'm enjoying the outcome really a lot. Now I start putting down the actual working plane stands that planes can come to, take off from, basically everything. Planes can come to these. And what I tried to do is I tried to keep some only for departures, some only for landing, so for arrivals, and then some you could do both. And what I did is the one, and I tried to keep it basically one sort of type per spoke or terminal. And so what that allowed me to do is use these pedestrian roads, not paths. They come with network extensions too. And I would basically I'd connect the departure ones to the top level, the road that goes up above, because that's how it is in real airports. All arrivals are on the top, and that's complicated to explain why, but it's basically for plane. It's just the sort of guidelines for how you have most airports do it, and that adds to the realism. And then all the ones that you could only arrive on, they'd all come from the bottom for the most part. And basically, to get it to actually work, so people come through, so you actually have to use these, the pedestrian roads, but taxis can go on them too if you want. But you can't just have them slightly touch this working plane stand. You have to clip it through, so it literally, it's going into the taxiway a little, because you need to make it so that this is the closest exit or entrance to it, other than that service road that I have that I'm putting down right now, because that's also a road. And so, yeah, it ends up being pretty complex. And you can see right now I have this sort of infrastructure for how I want the planes to come to each little gate, but I tweaked this later because it wasn't working. Right, now on to the detailing. Fun part. Not really. This wasn't that fun. Although it was really fun to plan. So basically, the first marking I'm putting down, this denotes where the ramp or non-movement area begins. It's denoted by having the solid line facing towards the non-movement area, and the dashed line facing towards the movement area or the taxiways. And basically, yeah, the solid line, you can't pass through. This it's really complicated. Basically, the dashed line means that planes can cross over, and a lot of this was Propline tool. There was only a little bit of Move It because it can all be done through Propline tool. Propline tool is amazing in terms of putting lines down, because line isn't the name. Explaining the obvious once again, Brian. Great job. And yeah, this it's really just a whole bunch of repetition, because you're doing the same thing over and over again. You're just putting down a line. But when it starts to do the different lines, when you start putting down different lines, it's a lot more interesting, because you're starting to see some diversity and realism in your airport. It really sort of picks up really quickly. It sort of just strikes you like, oh, this is starting to look real. And then, because right now what I'm doing is I'm basically I'm putting the marking on a road, I'm also putting down on the other side this white solid line, and you can see I just put down the checkered line. That's not right. This isn't a movement area. This is a non-movement area, so I shouldn't have put down this checkered line, and I fixed that later because that's not right. So it should just be a solid line. And the way airport service roads are denoted is they have just a solid white line border, or in the case of this, because it sort of borders the ramp, some of them might have this ramp line on one side, and then in the center they'll just have this really this dashed white line. It's really not that complicated. I don't even know if I should be explaining this, but I am, for the sake of people who might not want to do their own research. I also discovered recently Propline tool has this really great setting. It's called linear fence fill. Basically, no matter where you drag your cursor, if you're doing a straight line, the fence will go there. It won't be just like it pops in based on how long each prop is. So yeah, it's really convenient for roads like this where you can't plan around the lines because it's sort of irregular. Once I finished with those lines, you can see, actually before I cover that, you can see I actually had that pedestrian path touching that plane stand, and that's what I was talking about. That's not right. It should be going all the way in and not just barely touching it. And yeah, you can see the lines I did here. It sort of connects straight to the highway, and I have this dashed line on the side because this is a fire station and you will get fire trucks and stuff passing through that white line. And for now, this is what the airport looks like. I'm happy with it. There's still going to be a lot of growth because there's going to be a cargo area. There's going to be so much that we still need to do. The highway seems to be working well when I tested it. And people are taking the train pretty often, which is nice. However, we're not getting any citizens using the airport, which is really disappointing because I want that to be a thing. And somehow they got it working in FPS, and it's not working for me. So what I tried doing is putting down the event generators, and I haven't seen how that's working yet, but I put basically an event generator into each spoke to make traffic for each terminal. See here on the corners, I have this really sharp intersection while it should be rounded. I also fixed that later. Basically, in an airport, everything is smooth and rounded. Don't just work with that. After that, I have this dashed line with a spacing of 8 meters. That's what it looks like to me on Google Maps. I didn't actually measure it. Probably should have, but I'm not going to fix this now because that's too much work. I'm not replacing all of that. And now we're on to the pavement, and this is really sped up because of just how simple this is. I really don't think you need to see this slowly. This is a 40-minute video already. I don't need it to be any longer. And because Surface Painter and Concrete is sort of messed up, it'll create this sort of glitchy area where it intersects with something, where it connects with something that's not Surface Painter Concrete. So what I did to border that, because it seems to work with these for some reason, is I put down these ploppable concrete brushes, and then after that you paint Surface Painter in the middle, and it doesn't do that weird glitchy thing. Also, take note of the fact that I'm only adding concrete to the actual ramp area rather than everywhere, because it's just unnecessary to do that. Outside of the ramp, you're only getting vehicles on basically just the roads, the taxiways, and the runways, and you don't need to protect everything from jet blast. Also, what you're seeing me do right now is basically customizing each terminal for basically separate airlines. For example, I have 2 gates designated for Taira or Emirates, that's what it's based on. And then, for example, you could see now I gave 2 gates for Taira, then I have this side on the left for CS Airlines or American Airlines, it's the same thing. And then this on the right for Transcon or United, because United seems to have a very big area in each airport that I go to. I actually really like these airplanes. I think Bisquekalhausen did an amazing job on them, and they're really accurate in terms of their size. I have that one over there pushing back, and then this one here, I think I'm not sure what I'm gonna do, but I have to do it for all the terminals, like you can see here. And each of them is gonna get basically their own own airline. Next up, I continued working on the terminals and basically giving each of them their own airlines. And so for this one right here, this is a Fluglini and Rhinestone and San Miniato. Basically, I gave I think that's 4 gates. Yeah, 4 gates. I gave them for Rhinestone and San Miniato because those were huge inspirations to me for City Skylines. I don't think I would have started if I had watched them. If I hadn't watched them, sorry. And then for all the rest of the gates in this terminal, I gave to Fluglini. And I'm not sure what airline, this is based on, but I really like how it looks. It's really simple. It's just this sort of blue livery with this yellow plane. And it's really nice because it doesn't hurt the eyes too much. And then my personal favorite is this Air Canada terminal. I really like Air Canada. I fly with them pretty often. And in general, I think they're really good airlines. So I just had to include an entire terminal dedicated to them. Continuing with the whole Canadian theme, we have WestJet over here, and I gave them 3 gates connected to the terminal as well as 3 sort of gates on the ground. Oh no, sorry, not 3 gates. I gave them actually more. Okay. Well, yeah, basically I gave them quite a few gates. WestJet is really popular here in Canada, so as well, like if you go to Toronto Pearson, you can see them everywhere. And I also gave Strictost Air some gates. And yeah, I'm really happy with how that is. You could see they have a plane there, even though I'm pretty sure it didn't take off because nothing is taking off for some reason, only landing. We have these turboprop WestJet planes here. I'm not sure what model this is. I think this is like a Q4000 or something like that. It's really nice. They're pretty common for like regional flights from province to province. I see them a lot, although I myself haven't actually been on them. And I wanted to actually show my plane paths. You can see I have this one right here. It's like perpendicular. It's not perpendicular, but it's going straight to these. I actually deleted that one later because nobody was using that. And I have this one, this diagonal one, which sort of passes by those other runways, which you can land on. And then I have these, which you can use to take off from, even though nobody is taking off for some reason, and I can't get it to work. Vasimir also has a North American airline logo prop pack, and so he doesn't have them for every airline. He has WestJet, Air Canada, I think Delta might be on there. I know United is on there, as well as American Airlines, but basically the airlines that I have that also have these logos, I just put them right onto the jet bridges, and I really like how it looks, because it does contribute to realism, because this is, you know, how the jet bridges are like. And I'm not sure if they're stored exactly like this, but I'm happy with how it looks. Next up, we're creating a sort of bus line for the service vehicles, actually, because again, Vasimir has a pack of basically service vehicles that act as buses, that you can make them sort of drive around your airport, and I really like it. And it includes this invisible bus terminal that I just hid in the I hid in a terminal, and then you create a bus line. You choose the service vehicles you want to go on it, and you just set them off, and they go on their way. And I made quite a few of these loops, but I try to keep it with as few stops as possible, because I don't know, I just don't really want them to stop that much. But yeah, it's working fine. After this, I think I have like 3 loops total, and I try to get service vehicles going on every single service road I can, just to make, you know, it clear that it's actually a functional road. And here I accidentally removed a road, but anyways, after I did that, yeah, I just pick the vehicles, and there's catering vehicles, fuel trucks, and little tractors for baggage carts. There aren't any follow me cars, which I wish there were, because I really like those. I turn off budget control, and I add like a quadrillion of them. And you also have to set the line to white, otherwise they'll appear as that sort of blue color. That's the default. And I just called it loop 1. They're really nothing. I can't specify exactly what loop it is, because they're all so general and just sort of sprawl around the airport. I realize I've been talking for the majority of this episode, but there's just so much to get through, so I really am sorry. But anyways, what I'm doing now is I'm starting to basically detail each individual gate or plane stand, and I start off basically by creating the movement area, I think that's what it's called, for the jetways. And I did this one a little bit incorrectly, because it didn't provide enough room for where it could swing, but you basically get the idea. You create this sort of red outline for the border of where the jetway can basically move to, and then you create these sort of diagonal just diagonal lines that sort of indicate that, you know, be careful around this area, don't put anything here. There are some props of sort of pre-made ones on the workshop, but you can't really alter them, because it's only for a specific sort of configuration of jetways, and mine are all different, so I have to make my own. And this is using, again, Vasimir's line pack. These are just the solid red lines. And also, these aren't decals, by the way. These are all props, because they stay more visible, and it's just easier to use, because you can, I don't know, that's just the way Vasimir did it, and I'm happy with it. After that, I'm using sort of something I saw in Toronto Pearson International Airport, where they use these sort of triangles to denote each stop bar, and basically I lined them up, and then I just put them at the end. You can use triangles, you can use rectangles, you can use circles. Each airport seems to have its own separate sort of way of doing it. And onto these triangles, you can put numbers, and indicates which ramp this, not which ramp, sorry, which gate this is. here I start just going into a little bit more detail, and I put down some baggage carts, and I only include one tractor per gate because that seems to be how they do it. They don't need multiple tractors, at least I think. They could probably take them from other gates, but that's how I've seen them do it at other airports. And this, by the way, is like a little parking area that is usually found near plane stands. I like how it ended up looking. I'm really glad, actually. And only some of them are closed. For the most part, I'm pretty sure they're all empty. Like, they're open and they're empty because there's no luggage in them. Why would there be? And yeah, that's basically I just do this for every gate. What you're seeing me do right now on this gate is I repeat the same process for every gate, except it's different for every gate because each plane stand is different. Like I said, this is a little bit of like a parking area, so there is usually sort of like an outline, or sometimes it's little like boxes for each thing, but because I'm gonna have different vehicles, I decided just to keep it like as these little rows. I'm pretty happy with how it looks. This is realistic because not all airports have those blocks that I was talking about. So yeah. Now what I'm doing is I'm putting down a little pushback vehicle. Each gate seems to have its own, and basically what these do, in case the name isn't obvious enough, they connect to the plane using a tow bar and they push it back. Sometimes they pull it, although that's pretty rare. I don't think that's a very common thing, but basically it connects to the plane, to the wheel, the front wheels usually, and then it pushes it back, and then from there the plane can go wherever it wants by its own. That big pushback vehicle you might have seen, it's like this red one, and it looks kind of like it has a magnet on the back. Basically, that's a tow barless pushback vehicle, and what it does is it like clamps the wheels and pulls them up, and then that lets them push the vehicle back without even needing to use a tow bar. And they're really big and really powerful, and I think they're pretty cool and sophisticated. So I did include a few of them, but I don't know if I actually included that footage. Of course, I have to include some catering trucks too. However, I've never actually seen them at a parking spot, so I decided not to do that. I'm pretty sure they have their own separate building that they go to and basically get filled up with stuff. But fuel trucks, probably the same thing, but I decided to put one on the parking area because I want to, okay? This is my airport. From there, I kind of just try to break up the blandness a bit with Ronix's decals. I use a lot of roadwear decals, as well as some stains, cracks, and a few puddles. It really does sort of bring out the realism and show that it's been worn out a bit, but I don't know if plane stands are this worn out, but I do want this to look like it's a heavily used airport, so I decided to make it look pretty worn out. Something that you can also see me do here is I create this sort of, this is actually also by Vasimir. Oh my god, so many things by Vasimir. This is like a cargo door, and it's for A320s, I think, and this is a A380, so I just kind of combine two to make this really wide one. And then I add this belt loader onto there, so it's like going into the plane. and then just some luggage carts basically. So it's bringing the luggage. Here basically is just exactly what I was talking about. I'm just numbering each gate. This is gate 8, so I labeled it gate 8. And if you're using like a Mars configuration, you'd have gate 8, and then all the alternate ones would be like 8A, 8B. And something that, at least in the airports that I go to, each gate on its jetway also usually has the gate number and like this sort of triangular prism. And it's always it's black on yellow, but that doesn't seem to be a prop on the workshop yet, so I'm just using Vasimir's basically taxiway signs, and I think these are like runway distance signs or something. I basically, this is still gate 8, and I put it down, and then I raise it, and then that's the number. And this is sort of just like the overview of the airport. This is what I have done so far. You can see just this side of the terminal I was able to basically detail because it took so long. You can see it's on the proper part on the plane stand. Try to get that right. That was thank you to Biskopshausen, who actually provided me with the information on which plane was which. That really helped a lot. You have the parking space all, done right in my opinion. The movement area for the jet bridge, and you also have these Sky Chef's catering trucks. And you have the number on the top. This is gate 11. I'm happy. I'm so happy with how this looks. It looks really great when it's all put together, and you have the catering truck driving by over there. It all just really comes together and looks perfect. Then we have, again, this is gate 12. I couldn't fit the letter in. For example, that jetway on the left would be 12A, but I couldn't fit letters in. And this is an A38, and you have the catering truck, which has risen up way higher. And on the right, you have that tow barless pushback vehicle. And this is sort of what the whole airport looks like. This is the only gate they're using for some reason, rather than all the other ones I have. It's really annoying. But, I mean, hopefully I'll be able to fix that eventually. I don't think I have much else to say. Oh yeah, you can see that it's pretty grungy, this sort of area. And if you look at it at night, you can't really see anything because there's no light. This is by the way the glowing outline of the jetway I was talking about. And so what I'm just gonna do is I'm just gonna set it tonight, and then I'm just going to take a airport light and then just put them at the end of each plane stand, and it'll really sort of make the area more visible at night and also more realistic. And what I'm gonna do is, because these ones are a bit dim for some reason, as you can see, and I'm not gonna put them there by the way. This is just me trying something out, figuring out where to put them. I'm gonna be basically clipping two of them together because combined it's way brighter and it's the proper brightness that it should be. that's pretty much it for today. I'd like to thank everyone so much for your patience, for waiting for this episode, and if you like this video, do leave a like and leave a comment letting me know what you liked about this episode. And on the contrary, if you didn't like this episode, leave a dislike, and again, let me know in the comments what you didn't like. I read all the comments, say that every episode because it's true. I do read all the comments. I enjoy reading what you guys think, and if I'll try to improve on what you guys ask me. If you like these kinds of videos, if you want to see more of this, subscribe, and if you want to be notified when I upload a new video, because my upload schedule seems to be so inconsistent, click the bell icon, because notifying people on YouTube seems to be pretty weird lately. So make sure you get all the notifications by clicking the bell icon. Yeah, see you next time.
$50, $40, $30, $20, retard, $10.
Terrain, pull up,